This podcast was brought to you by the good people at Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial right now at audibletrial.com/nothingbutstatic. Hello and welcome to Stephen University. This week we'll be discussing Raising the Barn. But first of all, we have to congratulate Chris, who has this week moved into his new home. And he hasn't just, like I've done, hopped from one temporary accommodation where I'm paying an exorbitant sort of amount of rent, to another one. Chris is actually a home owner now,
Right.
with his
Thank you
beautiful
very much.
fiancée. So congratulations, Chris, on
Thank you,
being the first of us to truly be an adult.
I don't think that counts, mate. There's fucking pop vinyl figures all over this room.
Yeah, but you know,
Sure.
you're engaged. You own property. I mean, you are of the two of us. You have got your life together.
Thank you very much. I think
Congratulations.
the bigger question though. You say I've got my life together earlier on. So today we're doing the after party, which is a drunk episode of Nothing But Static.
Yes.
And we, as agreed, or at least I've started drinking because I had a stressful half an hour where I couldn't find my memory card. So
Oh dear.
I've started drinking.
Please
but
don't do that. That we've got 3 of these to get through. Only the third one needs to be drunk. Please.
Well, I've started that, and I'll tell you what. Out of stress, I'm a bottle and a half down.
Oh no.
So I was going to ask you whether you'd started drinking, but clearly you haven't. Then.
No, because that's a terrible idea, Chris. We have 3 podcasts to get through in this recording session. Only one of which needs to be drunk.
I disagree, Dan. Earlier on,
we did say that we would never do a drunk episode of Stephen University unless it was not on an episode, unless it was
and
like a bonus one.
If you're sober, we're not doing a drunk episode.
Jesus Christ.
So I was buying dip, and the guy, it went all over my hands, and I really angrily went up to the cashier and was like, "Mate, one of your dips broke, and there's dip everywhere." And the guy was like, "Oh dear," and he picks up my dip, and I'm like, "No, it's not the dip I'm buying. It's some dip over there, like in the dip section." And he just went, "How do you know? Have you tasted it?" I was like, "No, it fucking stinks, mate. Like I'm not licking dip off my fingers." Like, really wound me up.
Yeah, so it's pretty
Dan is right though, because this is a new room. If there's any kind of echo, I apologise.
Yes.
It feels very echoey, so hopefully that's not coming across on mic.
It probably is slightly, but we'll work around it. I can't imagine that the echo isn't coming back a little on the mic, because just that's how it works. But once you've got a bit more furniture in there or something softer, it'll absorb more of the sound. Anywho, so let's do Raising the Barn. What's it about, Chris? What happens? Catch me up.
So Raising the Barn, Stephen is still depressed over Connie, not rocking out, not replying to him. So he's looking at his phone, all depressed. Then he gets a call, but it's actually Peridot and Lapis who want to find out about what happened. When they find out what happened, Lapis gets very nervous and decides that they should leave immediately because she doesn't want to get caught up in another war, and she's convinced that the gems are going to come down and come after Stephen. So Stephen goes to the barn and they are attempting to move it. So Peridot kind of first says, "Well, what about all our stuff?" So Lapis concludes that they can take the barn with them, and using water manages to pull it up. Greg's brother's going to be pissed. They, much like myself, Dan. So they raise up the barn, and then Peridot notices that Pumpkin is not there. So they go looking for him. There's some looking for Pumpkin banter involving Onion and them finding a basketball instead of Pumpkin, which is very funny. In the end, they find him, and Peridot, whilst talking to Pumpkin, makes it kind of clear that she doesn't want to go either. So they return to Lapis, and Lapis says, "Right, we're ready, let's go." And that's when Peridot stands up for herself, and she says she doesn't want to leave because she believes they should and can fight for Earth and can win. But Lapis is having none of it. She reaffirms that she doesn't want to get involved in any war. So then she flies off, and Peridot moves back into the bathroom. Peridot lays in the bath depressed, with Stephen and Pumpkin led there as well. Stephen checking his phone, still no text from Connie.
It's a good recap.
Hey, I thought that was quite concise.
It was.
Yeah.
Considering you're a beer and a fucking half in, yeah, I think that's turned out okay.
The thing is, I honestly thought like we agreed, but we agreed that we'd only just have one or two during SU.
No,
but now that it's making you nervous, it just makes me want to drink more.
Well, here's the thing. We had said that we would start drinking halfway through the SU before the MBS, so that we could, be starting to get a little drunk when we start MBS, so that MBS doesn't start sober, because you don't want to start from zero with a drunk podcast. That's no fun. But since then, we've had a scheduling thing, and we agreed to add an extra podcast onto this, because this was originally going to be one, then it was going to be 2 SUs in the same session before MBS, and even for a minute yesterday, it looked like we were going to end up doing, 2 days ago, you wanted to do 3, and I was already worried about pushing it to 2. But the very, very original conceit of this recording session was 1 SU MBS. And halfway through drinking on this one going into MBS would have been fine, and that is what we sort of agreed. We didn't discuss the drinking after that. So I am concerned that we have got an hour and a half of SU to get through, hopefully mostly sober, and that you've started drinking. Because keep in mind, by the time we get to MBS, I mean, it's going to be a mess, isn't it? Yeah. You're drinking now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's all good. Don't worry about it. And it's not going to not entertain me that you're concerned. I am drinking dip-covered alcohol, Dan. Just for your entertainment.
I misheard that for a second. It sounds like you said you were drinking dick-covered alcohol, and I was like, "Oh, what's this?"
No, there's no need.
A
There's
new
no
product
need to get
that
smutty,
intrigues
Dan.
me.
There's no need to get like that. There's no need to get dirty. I thought this was. It's a weird one. I thought, look, from a character point of view, it was a really good episode. I
was going to say it's about literally your favorite character, like.
Yeah, definitely. But we deal with her at the beginning and the end, and I know there's not much of them looking for Pumpkin, but I did kind of the scenes at the end between Peridot and Lapis were so effective, and so character driven that I was watching it going, oh, it's a shame we didn't get more of this, more of them debating this, because it is about her. But really, it's just about her repeating the phrase, I don't want to get involved in another war.
Well, yes, but, and I'll play devil's advocate here, because I do kind of see where you're coming from, but I see the other side of it too, which is that we've got this weird situation where Peridot, what makes the ending so powerful to me is that Peridot's unquestioning loyalty to Lapis is so prevalent in the opening. She's just like, okay, then we're leaving. Like, she does say, oh, do you not think it's better to stay? She puts a case forward for it. But when Lapis says, no, we're definitely leaving, Peridot's just on board with it. Like, she's just like, okay, I guess we're leaving then, And then it's only on the search for Pumpkin that Peridot sort of starts to hint at her. So I think the stuff at the end between them is all the more powerful, because if you're setting up that Peridot is, out of loyalty, sticking with Lapis, you need to give a reason to sort of either have her accidentally reveal that maybe deep down she doesn't feel that way, so that it can come out in the end. And if it was just that debate from start to finish, without anything in the middle to be the catalyst for that, then it would feel a bit arbitrary and out of nowhere that she suddenly goes, wait a minute, no, I don't actually want to go.
I don't disagree, but then that makes the episode about your favourite character, not mine. The episode is Peridot's episode then, not Lapis.
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point.
So I think if you view it like that, fine. It's a great character piece for Peridot. My favourite element of what it did for her character was the fact I don't know. I guess I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't necessarily expecting her to say that the reason she wanted to stay was to protect the Earth. I thought that was such a crystal gem response. That was such a response in keeping with the journey she's gone on, and not the journey Lapis has gone on. And I thought that was particularly powerful, that element of it.
They aired a trailer at Comic-Con that we've talked about that gave away some stuff. You know, they had, so there was 3 things they had at Comic-Con. There were 2 clips and a sort of a mini trailer, and the mini trailer ended with that Peridot line, which I'm sad they gave it away that she would say that. But it's that moment when she says, you know, Earth is our home now. Isn't it worth fighting for? And she holds out a hand. Like, you're right. That is, you know what? You've just completely broken my brain about this episode. I've always considered this a Lapis episode because it does the thing that will obviously have the most impact going forward is the fact that Lapis is gone. So you just go, it's a Lapis thing. But it's not at all, is it? It's nothing to do with her in a weird way. She has done what she's always done. She has sensed the oncoming battle and gone, I want no part of this. I've made it clear in the past I'm not part of this war, and she is fucked off. The more interesting part of this is Peridot's reaction to it, and then potentially the arc going forward of Peridot being sad that Lapis has sort of left her.
I feel like we're going to get to the Lapis stuff. I feel like that's going to be like her next episode. But yeah, I absolutely think that this episode belongs to Peridot, and belongs to her journey. And can I also add, don't know if you're able to hear that, Dan or audience, but that was my third bottle of cider getting opened.
Dear Lord. Cider as well. They come in big bottles. They're not like small little half pint bottles. They're the big pint bottles.
I am drinking some strawberry and lime. Strawberry and lime.
Something tells me we're not going to be getting to the second episode of Steven.
Yeah, we'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Let's before I drink, let's address the element that no doubt would have got to some people, and would have got the shippers up in arms or celebrating, because they kind of draw parallels at the end between Stephen and Connie's situation and Peridot and Lapis's. But I don't know. I think it works. It works if you want to view it as a relationship, and I think it works if you want to view it as a friendship as well.
I'd agree.
I don't think they particularly make a firm stance either way. Do you?
No, and I think sometimes I think if as a writer you don't if you're a writer of a thing and you've got 2 characters and you know your audience are clambering for them to be together, or parts of your audience are clambering for them to be together, you sort of have to be careful, because if that's not in the plan, you've got a fine line to walk, because I suppose definitively putting an end to that could upset people, but at the same time, you also want to keep your options open. If you've not decided to do that, there's nothing to say you couldn't in the future. Do you know what I mean? So you have to want this weird balance of sort of like not closing doors. Unless, actually, no, you know what? Forget everything I just said, because one thing we know about this show is they have a lot of this stuff planned out pretty deeply. And I would be sad to think that Lapis and Peridot, if they were ever to get together, was a reaction to fandom. If they were to ever to actually pull the trigger on that relationship, I would like to think, personally, that it was on the cards from the beginning and part of the character arcs that they'd already pre-designed, and not something they were tiptoeing about while they decided what to do. So actually, scrap what I just said.
Definitely. And I think I do think it's more of a friendship story. It's akin to Garnet falling out with Pearl, you know, with the fusion bomb. I don't, but then they do. It is hard to deny that they, you know, the what do we do now stuff at the end, and Peridot is certainly reacting like someone who's just broken up with someone. She's certainly in that funk.
Yeah.
You know, she's not even talking. She just collapses into the bath. It certainly seems that way. But I think it's fascinating. And I think it's more, you know, I think there doesn't have to be a ship either way. You could just watch and enjoy the story they're telling, the story the creators are telling. Well, and I think They may have some sort of arc planned for that. They may not. But I'm happy to see their interpretation of it. I kind of have given up on Peridot and Amethyst, I will say.
Yeah.
This seems more like a love story than that one, most certainly.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is, as well, as you're in this weird situation where they've both got such distinct stories that are being told regarding them, and I think throwing a romance in on top of that would probably muddy it up too much. That's another fine line that sometimes you have to sort of walk as a writer, is like if you've got too many stories, you want it to be complex. You don't want it to be really straightforward and simple. You want complexity, but you don't want so much complexity that it's just gets a bit everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Like there is a breaking point with complexity when you've got too many things going on at once, and it can really sort of dim the message, can really hurt the show's ability to express itself.
Yeah, I am also, it has to be said, more interested in Lapis staying away from war and Peridot's commitment to the Earth and commitment to the crystal gems than I am a love story between the two of them. And I'm a guy that loves the love stories, as people know. Exactly
my point, which is, I think, so because I think even if the writers do eventually want to pull that trigger, or doesn't, whatever their decision is on that, I think it's probably smart for the time being to not do it, because they've both got such interesting stories going on. You run the risk of complicating it too much with a relationship. You know what I mean? And I'm the sort of person who genuinely, I would love to see if they because I think, you know what, for particularly, this goes out to like some of the European Cartoon Network channels that have edited these episodes in the past, to actually put two of these characters together and not, do it in a vague sort of hinty way with it. No, actually pull the trigger on it. It would be such a good fuck you to all those channels that have like censored this show in the past. But at the same time, I want what's right for the characters. So the sort of like the person in me that wants these channels to understand, these are equality is important, and let's not like shy away from something that you think your advertisers might find concerning for children or whatever. Like, fuck that. Like, there's a part of me there's like the activist in me that like sort of wants to go, yeah, fuck those guys, but then also like I don't want to just shove it in there because of that. Do you know what I mean? It has to be right for the characters, and it has to be genuine. Otherwise, it's going to hurt the argument more than help it. Does that make sense?
Okay, so let's break that down then. Of all the potential couples we've had in the show, if they were going to put two together properly, and let's define that as they share a kiss and they are referenced as a couple. There's scenes of them holding hands, whatever. They say "I love you." Which couple of the potential couples are you going to want them to do that with? I have an answer if you don't have one, but
it's really tricky because the two characters they put the most work into from a character perspective, taking my sort of desire to, give the finger to all the arseholes out there that keep censoring this show. If I'm just going by the characters, the two characters they've put the most work into making me want to see together are Stephen and Connie.
That's fair. See, they're not my answer. See if you can. I'll give you one guess. See if you can guess my answer.
Okay. Oh, I suppose you could be talking about Ruby and Sapphire, but I suppose they've already kind of done that.
Sense. Yeah, no, my answer is by far, because in terms of the couples, I think the options you've got the Peridot Lapis thing, you've got Stephen and Connie, you've got Lars and Sadie, and you've
Lars
got
and Sadie.
And you've got what my answer is, which is Pearl and the
mystery girl,
the rebel woman.
Yeah, fandom generally speaking refer to her at this stage as mystery girl.
Mystery girl,
because her number simply had the letter S on it, so you could also call her S, I suppose, but.
Pearl and Mystery Girl is without a doubt my answer. I'd
forgotten all about that.
I love Lars and Sadie, but they're doing something different, it has to be said, with Lars. And if I was a betting man, I'd bet that they're going to follow up the Sadie and the cool kids stuff, and give Sadie a storyline in that way. She kind of her downbeat references to being the only one at the donut shop. I think Sadie's destined for bigger things, maybe. So I think those two have their own stories.
You know
as
what,
much as
Chris?
I
you
do...
know what, Chris?
Yeah, go on.
I'm gonna say it because everyone's thinking it. Fuck you and your Wikipedia ways. Like I'm not
looking on Wikipedia.
People are gonna be so like, you have no idea how much shit I've got over the last couple of weeks about shit you've said, because you are one after the fucking other predicting everything, and I'm done. I'm putting my foot down. Stop it.
I'm not. It's because they've given Lars a gang.
Yeah, no.
So
in
if
terms
they've
of the
given
Sadie
Lars
stuff,
a gang,
if
they've given Lars a gang, so clearly Lars is staying on Homeworld, or wherever for a bit.
You've not pulled it out of your arse. You've based it on what you've seen, but you have no idea how many times on each episode now. The rate of you nailing 3-pointers has gotten absurd, mate. Absurd.
Well, that's right. Well, if I'm ever gonna slip
half the time you don't even realize you're making a prediction. Though you say so many offhanded things that are actually a huge thing, and you're not even making a suggestion or a theory. You just like stumble into it. What the fuck are you doing? Like how? I don't understand.
Well, this is why I should keep drinking, so that I can slip up if I am looking on Wikipedia. Which again, I'm not. We're so close.
I know. No, genuinely though, and this has been throughout the whole run of this. You have had an uncanny knack of like being able to sort of foresee where the show is going. Not good at. You have got it wrong a couple of times too, but they're less noticeable because when you get it right, you don't just get it in the area. You fucking hit the nail on the head. Do you know what I mean? Like you it's hard to explain, but it's like you say plenty of things that don't pan out. We talked about like Topaz.
No, but you
thought Topaz was coming back. But
if I stop doing it when we're caught up, people are gonna think I have looked. So you shouldn't be saying this.
No, but they know. This is a conversation I'm having regularly with our listeners. It's driving me up the wall.
You're putting too much pressure.
But it is remarkable. So you should be proud because you have hit the nail on the head many times. Like you called Ruby and Sapphire way ahead of that. You even you even called the one eye thing without realizing it as a joke that Sapphire would have one eye thing.
Oh, what? Ruby and Sapphire?
Yeah, you predict.
That one of them would have one eye. Yeah, but again,
you did that jokingly though. Like you didn't even you weren't even necessarily. Do you know what I mean? And then you predicted the Crystal Gem, the new Crystal Gems episode, 6 episodes prior to it happening. You once sort of Greg was sort of like kidnapped at the beginning of that bomb. You were just like, well, this is going to be the bomb where they go out into space and get him, and like, yeah, just like, and then you said there's a bunch of stuff. Someone at some point will compile a list, and I'll just go through them and blow your mind because the amount of times you've said really casual things that have turned out to be like spoilers, and I just
But I don't think any of that. But I don't think any of that is something that someone else wouldn't have done if they analysed this show for 40 minutes after watching it. Like, all of it just comes from that, in my opinion. Like,
that's the crazy thing about it, and I think that's the reason why we don't get a lot of genuine people saying, "I think Chris is looking shit up." We get a lot of jokier. Chris has been on Wikipedia again, and I think the reason that people do that is because the stuff you're calling, you're always citing your sources. Does that make sense? When you get a theory correct, you usually say, oh, well, I've come to this conclusion because of this and this, and the thought pattern is super clear and it's obvious how you got there. And sometimes it's I've accidentally led you, and sometimes you've just put together the evidence that's that we've discussed because we discuss every angle of every episode. And then sometimes you're completely off the mark. Like I was just about to say, like the Topaz thing. Because you're predicting Topaz would be the sort of savior of that situation in the Wanted arc, and obviously. And thankfully, because that's the other thing. For me, it's a bummer because the whole point of this is that I'm enjoying the show, and I think if you keep taking all the surprise out of it, I'm going, what's he going to enjoy out of this if he knows?
No, but
where it's going?
the bigger stuff. Like I think there's a difference between like predicting moments and like I predicted that Stephen might. Somewhere that I don't, but I didn't say it as a prediction. But I think you pointed out the other week that I'd said about well, if someone died, Stephen could have a good go at trying to bring them back. But that wasn't me predicting that was going to happen.
No, but
so
that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of this weird
got
tangential
surprise and enjoyment when it did.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of this tangential, accidental sort of spoilering as well. Like exactly that. You literally, if I could play the quote back, it's remarkable because you said about they'd never kill someone, and I just asked the honest question as a person, in a conversation. I said to you, "Oh, you don't think they'd be willing to kill someone in this show?" Not particularly thinking of the last situation that was 8-9 episodes ahead. Just it was a genuine reaction to what you were saying. And I was curious about your opinion because that's what the show is. It's opinions. So you go, and you literally are like, not permanently, no. I could see them, and you literally say, I could see them potentially killing a character to have Stephen bring them back. And it was freaky. Like it was like you knew, but you couldn't have because you didn't have any details. You were just sort of talking generally about the show. But that's the weird thing. And what's funny is I'm sure if we did a ratio, your hit rate probably isn't as good as it seems. It's just the ones where you nail it because we've all watched ahead of you and we know when we hear it. Like I know instantly when you're getting it right, obviously, because it's not like you're watching the show live. Does that make sense? Whereas if we were doing this live along with the show, people might not remember that you said that. Does that make sense? But because we know, instantly we're going, holy shit, he's right. And that alarm bell rings every single time you nail on the head. And we've never talked about it properly on the show. And I've always wanted to, but just never known really the right time. But I just gave up then. I was like, the Sadie thing. I was just like, fuck you. No, like the way you put it together, she's gonna hang out with the cool kids, and people are gonna yell at me because they're gonna feel like I'm spoiling this here. But even your use of the phrase "she's meant for bigger things" is again a roundabout general way of saying it, and I'm sure the details of how goes ahead will maybe surprise you. But because and again to do the what you just said to kind of go, well, this is the thought process. They've literally given Lars a gang, so Lars is there's no way that there is no barn now, so there's no way the off colours are going to come to Earth and they're all going to hang out on the barn. So Lars is off there. So you look at the pieces of what have they done with Sadie? And you've got got her being nervous but wanting to sing, her referencing being the only one left at the donut shop, and then her really getting on and having a good time with the cool kids, which they brought up again in the... didn't Stephen bring that up when they talk about Lars running away from the party? Yeah, I think they do. I can't 100% remember, but yeah, I think that rings a bell. All those pieces.
I'm just putting those pieces together logically.
100%. But I'm just like, it is nuts. And I think at some point, maybe we'll do an episode where we go back and play you all the clips of shit you just nailed without realizing. It's really funny. Every time it happens, I have to keep my shut. And a bunch of like a bunch of, especially the really early ones, were so surprising. And it's just. Yeah, it breaks my brain, buddy. You can't.
Well, you're getting your brain. Getting your brain broken a lot this episode, Dan.
I know you fucked me up with the. No, I think maybe I might just still tired or something. I did work till 3 a.m. So
you should definitely be drinking.
Yeah, no, I should. So to me, that would be morning drinking because I didn't wake up that long ago. But in terms of like this episode and stuff, you're right. You did sort of completely shift my perspective on this episode because I've always thought of this as being a Lapis episode.
No, I haven't finished. I haven't finished my Pearl and Mystery Girl point, dude. We got
we got way off. Mystery Girl. Go on. Sorry.
Sorry, if that's all right.
No, of course, 100%.
So it's just don't you hate that when you listen to a podcast or watch stand up or something and they tangent and then or interviews are the worst when someone is saying something and the interviewee interrupts and takes them on a different tangent and then you in your head are going, please go back. So I'm just conscious whenever we do that together.
No, 100%.
So I feel like Pearl and her kind of story about her relationship with Rose. Putting Pearl and Mystery Girl together is the only couple where I don't think where it enhances an existing story because you just take Pearl and Rose in a different direction and you do the kind of the rebound story or the girl after story, and there's so much fascinating stuff you can do with that doesn't take away or distract, in my opinion, from an existing storyline she has going on. Connie and Stephen, I do like the idea of but with them, I could see them sharing a kiss or something, but you're not really doing much more with that. Partly because that's so background compared to what other stuff they've got going on.
That's a really interesting point, actually, because I just went through in my head all of the various combinations and relationships that could sort of exist. Like Stephen and Connie, there's nowhere for that to go once they're together. Literally nowhere. It would just be the same.
Yeah, I don't see how the dynamic changes. You just have them
almost no reason to do it.
People bitch and moan, but other than the kind of will they, want they, unrequited stuff, actually not much changed when Jim and Pam got together. And it would be like that with Stephen and Connie. You might do the occasional story about it, but otherwise their main story arcs would just continue, whereas there is loads you can do with Pearl and Mystery Girl.
Yeah.
And also a big F you, just for those that complain about when Jim and Pam got together, it would have been moronic to break them up. Look at the Grief Series 9 got. Anyway, you were running through the couples in your head?
Yeah, just running through them. I can't think of any of them that aren't like the Stephen Connie thing, where it doesn't really change anything, or if anything, doing stories about it would hurt existing stories. So you look at the situation, like we said, we talked about Peridot and Lapis. Maybe you could do some interesting stories with it, but those stories would probably sort of damage the existing sort of arcs those two characters are on. And you look at I'm trying to think what the other combinations are. There are so many. There are a few, aren't there? It's even Lars and Sadie. It's like, what do you do once you bring those two together? There's nothing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing to do with
Whereas, yeah. So the episode. So I'm just conscious that we've gone on a me guessing and a couple's tangent, but I do think that's kind of fair.
At least these tangents are Steven Universe related, Chris.
Yeah, very true. But I don't. There's not. Other than I love the Lapis stuff, I can't wait to see where it goes. I love the Peridot stuff. I can't wait to see where it goes. I think it was a nice way of doing a story whilst keeping Stephen in his funk about Connie, because the danger of something like this where, the intention appears to be spreading it across various episodes is, do you do a story where he suddenly perks up? Whereas, because this story isn't about him, they were able to keep him in quite a depressed about Connie state, but also tell a story. So I like that element too. Until we go back to Lars, I'll be a little bit like, oh, when are we going to go back to Lars? But equally, I am quite invested in what's going to happen with Stephen and Connie as well. But other than those points, I don't think there's too much to say on this episode. So I can see why, because it's all essentially set up for what comes next.
At some point, we should actually have a conversation, because there I am saying it'd be great if they put two of these characters together. Two of the sort of characters that take that are sort of the same gender by human standards in terms of the gems and stuff, because technically that exists, but they just it's done so sort of subtly as to not, I guess, offend or risk censorship, because Ruby and Sapphire, that is clearly a relationship. I feel like
you just let me talk a minute ago and then continued the conversation we were having before my sort of episode summary, but I'll forgive you.
No, not necessarily. No, I heard what you were saying. I understood. You're right. It was. I just didn't have anything more to say on that.
Yeah. I just wanted affirmation that I wasn't missing anything about this episode. That you agree that it's set up, and that's why our kind of tangents have been allowed.
Yeah, I mean, the episode itself is exactly what you said. I just didn't want to repeat what you said, which is sort of it feels a really good role of keeping Stephen where he is, but telling it a story and pushing two other characters forward. There is a few things I want to get to about it, but I just very quickly, while I remember the point, because it just occurred to me something I wanted to say, and I just wanted to get that out there
about Ruby and Sapphire.
Yeah, just in the we should talk about that at some point and make it in maybe a topic episode or something, once we're in the hiatus. But where for a minute they didn't even occur to me when I'm going, put two of these characters together and that'll show them. They already have two characters that are together.
I think
is it the way they animate it? Is it the way that they've never been too overt about it? That it doesn't feel it feels kind of safe and on the line. Is that okay? Shouldn't they be more coupley if they're a couple. I don't know. It's kind of sweet that we've never really seen them like necessarily. I don't think we've never seen them kiss or anything. I think we've just seen them like embrace and hug.
Well, and infuse, yeah. I think that I think they've done very coupley things with them. I think the episode with the baseball,
where they were sort of getting quite flirty with each other.
Yeah, where they can't stop flirting. The episode Keystone Motel, still one of my favourite episodes, where they basically have a lovers' tiff. Like, I think they've done all sorts with them.
But do you not think that they would have maybe shown them kissing or some other interaction or something more overt had they been more definable as being different genders?
But then we need to, and you're right. I think it is a whole episode's discussion.
It's complicated, isn't it? It's an issue that I don't think we're qualified to speak on. But
well, it's the definition between a couple and a fusion. I don't get the feeling if Rose had returned Pearl's feelings, they
probably wouldn't have been a couple as we think of a couple on Earth.
Yeah, they probably would have just been a couple, like in the human sense of the word couple. If Lars and Sadie become a couple, they become a couple in the human sense of the word. And I don't think fusion.
That's a really interesting point.
I don't think fusion is the gem equivalent of being a couple. I think fusion. I think constant fusion is helped when there's a deep love, i.e., Ruby, Sapphire, and the two topazes. But I think there's a difference between a couple and a fusion.
Yeah, okay.
Because I don't think you have to be in love to be a fusion as well.
To sustain it for that length of time, though, because like remember when Lapis struggled to keep Malachite existing?
Yeah, true.
With in sort of like a slightly more abusive version of that relationship. That's really fascinating. At some point, we'll properly analyze that because I wonder how much of that is design because it's interesting because they're aliens and therefore their relationships just don't work the way human ones do, and I'm applying human relationships to it and coming up with zero, or is it just a very clever sidestep so they don't have to worry about censorship, so they can tackle issues of that might sort of reflect some of the struggles of the LGBT society and community without actually overtly being about it. Is it like how the X-Men were originally sort of like a very quite overt sort of parallel for racism in sort of like the 60s and stuff? Are the gems and this sort of like is it by design and a chance to explore those issues, or is it by design like that just because it's something different and something sort of alien, or is it a bit of both? I suppose it's probably a bit of both, right? Like
yeah.
Anyway,
right. What triv you got, Dan?
Well, quickly before I get to the triv, one other point I wanted to bring up about this particular episode. I wondered with watching this, are you running the risk at this stage with Lapis of being one note to the point of people getting fed up with her character?
I don't
it's
think
consistent, so. But is that a problem from a storytelling perspective?
I don't think so now because they've pulled more of a plug on it than they ever have before. She is literally, runaway's unfair, but she has literally decided to leave the Earth, her friends, her best friend, whatever Peridot is. I see Peridot as her best friend. She's separated herself. I don't know because I didn't get a sense of... It wouldn't surprise me if you turned around to me and said at this point you were going, well, she's going to come back at some point. Maybe she'll save the day. I don't know. I don't know if they're just going to... Well, they can't just have her gone. But I think because they have done more with it than they have in any previous episode, I think it's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I think some people did feel a little bit like they were getting quite frustrated with Lapis at this stage.
I get that. And if this had just been another... Because the last one very much ended on a... the last time they did this Lapis kind of storyline of her not being quite settled on Earth or whatever, it felt like they were verging on that. But because they've done something so specific with it this time, I think it's different, personally.
See, I just think it works because it's consistency. Like the character has not changed. They've never pretended the character has changed. She just momentarily felt safe on Earth enough to stick around.
Yeah, whereas if Peridot had left with her, that would have felt like they'd gone back on some stuff Peridot's already learnt.
And that's not to say Lapis doesn't have things to learn, but this episode is very much like, oh, Lapis. Because you totally, like, from my perspective, as someone who's sort of on board with the direction they've taken here, I'm not on the side of the people who feel like Lapis's character is problematic and one note or whatever. Because I think that it's very intentional that she's not grown. At no point have they pretended she's grown. At no point have they. All they've done with Lapis, for whether you like that or not, a different issue, but all they've really done with Lapis in terms of story is said, okay, Stephen convinced her that for now she is safe enough on Earth to stick about where she can have some company at least and live a bit comfortably. And sort of maybe experience a little bit of the planet that she's spending, that she's kind of stuck on. But at no point was she like, I'm over my fear of the war returning. At no point was
exactly.
No point did they do an arc where she was like, I'm on board. I'm going to defend this Earth with all my might. No, she's always held the same position. The only time she's actively gotten involved in the action is when Stephen's life has been at risk and she's wanted to help Stephen. She's never shown any indication of being willing to fight for Earth. So yeah, now she knows that Stephen just went and pissed off the diamonds. Yeah, of course she's fucking out the window. Like, I'm surprised there wasn't a smoke trail and a lapis-shaped hole in the fucking wall. Like, yeah, absolutely she's fucked off. And to me, it's actually admirable.
You didn't like it when it was like Roadrunner Dan.
Good one. What I think is really cool about it is I actually kind of admire that they've established a character and kept her consistent, because it is tempting for a show sometimes to give characters different sort of perspectives episode to episode and call it growth. It's not growth, it's cheating. But if a character, because what's that, sorry?
The Simpsons.
Yeah, that kind of occurred to me. Because you can just sort of say, oh, this week this person thinks like this. Well, it wasn't such an issue last week, and it's because it serves the story of that particular week, and next week it might be different. And it's kind of lazy, whereas what they've done here is they've created a character with a very specific set of beliefs and positioning, and it's based on her backstory. It's not out of nowhere. She's not just anti-war. No, a war got her trapped in a mirror for thousands of years. When she got out of that same fucking war led her to an extraordinarily abusive relationship where she was trapped in a half fusion under the ocean for months at a time. Like, of course she doesn't want to be anywhere near these wars and this planet, and because it's always ended badly for her. Every time these two sides have come into conflict, she's suffered as a result. So what I actually admire about this is that they haven't tried to force some sort of arc for her yet without good cause. I think ultimately, I thought at the time of this episode, what you want to do with Lapis is bring her in at some point in the future and do a story, where we adjust her perspective. And I do have the question though of like, how many more times do you do a story where it's like, you think she's about to change and make the right call and stick around and fight, and hasn't? How many more times do you get to do this where she basically just runs away before it's
they have to. I think they're at a limit with it. I think she has to come back. She has to choose to come back, and then she has to just be there from this point onwards.
What kind of catalyst could you invent for that though? All I keep thinking about is just putting Stephen in danger. That's all I can think that would be enough to bring her out of that sort of funk, as it were.
But Stephen or all of them, I think it could be Peridot. I think it could be the gems
awesome.
In general.
If it was Peridot, I would love that. I would really enjoy that.
Or it's a hatred for Homeworld, maybe.
It just has to be earned. I've talked about this before because some people have discussed like Peridot, who is clearly a very hard to poof gem, as we proved in the aforementioned Roadrunner episode. There's always been talk of when Peridot might get her star. She might get poofed and come back with a star. Explicitly, the show has never clarified that you need to be poofed to come back reformed. But at the same time, that's the only examples we've seen of somebody's design changing in a significant, not shape-shifty way. So I've always held the theory that if Peridot gets poofed in some sort of silly accident and comes back with a star, I'll be annoyed. I think if Peridot is going to get a star ever, it needs to be earned, meaning she needs to be she needs to be poofed doing something heroic, saving the Earth, saving the gems, saving Stephen, saving Lapis, saving someone, and earn that star. Because I think a true act of heroism would be rewarded with she's a crystal gem now. The reason I'm bringing that up is I apply that same logic to Lapis. She can't just change her mind now. We've had her so consistent for so long. If you were going to bring her into the fold, something needs to happen. It needs to be earned from the show's perspective. She can't just suddenly go, I'm fighting now for some reason, because that will make all of this bad. Do you know what I mean? Retroactively. Like, this on its own is fine, because, again, character consistency is really admirable. But if they then just U-turn it at some point in the future with little to no cause, then I'll be mad. Does that make sense? So all those people who are mad at this episode, that'll be me if that's what they end up doing. Which I don't think they will. I trust these writers.
No, I think that's a reasonable outcome. And I think Peridot has already earned it, but obviously she needs to be poofed. And like you say, if you can then add a layer by making that a heroic reason for her to need to be poofed, then that's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah.
What triv have we got now?
There isn't a lot, truthfully. The title's probably a play on the phrase, a sort of combination of two phrases: raising the bar, or a barn raising, which is when a community come together to literally build a barn or rebuild a barn. Like a community come together to build a barn.
I think it's literally she raises the barn.
Yeah, but raising the bar is a phrase, and barn raising is.
Yeah, I get it. Like, it's worthy of being trivia, but I don't think it applies. It's not a community coming together for any reason.
No, nor is
if
it.
Anything,
nor is she raising the bar. If anything, she's lowering the bar by being a coward and pussing out.
And if anything, it's a community breaking apart.
That is not phrasing I would ever use, except for when I'm trying to make a bad joke. That was horrendous.
And if it's also a community being pulled apart, so
yes.
No.
Yeah, 100%. Onion owns a fruit and veg stand called Onions.
Very good.
It's not trivia. I just wanted to talk about it. How good is that? And also,
I did like the basketball joke a lot as well.
Yeah, the basketball joke's great. I also really liked that Onion is wearing Steven's hat, his straw hat from Watermelon Steven.
Yeah.
Just a good little bit of continuity. I enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
This is the second episode to have the incorrect font on the title card. It's the font from the end credits, not the opening credits. There's only 2 episodes this happens on, last week's and this week's. The next episode, which is called Back to the Kindergarten, is back to the normal font, basically.
Okay, cool.
Which there you go. This is in the trivia, and I'm glad it is, because this is actually a pretty big talking point, in my opinion, from the episode. But we've missed it, so I'm glad it's in the trivia, even though it's not really trivia. Lapis was notably more alarmed about Stephen confronting Blue Diamond than Yellow Diamond. This could mean Lapis, like Garnet, is more familiar with Blue Diamond than the others.
That was my assumption, I must admit.
Yeah, because obviously we know that that's true of Garnet, because both Sapphire and Ruby were literally under the sort of leadership of Blue Diamond in that flashback episode, The Answer. Mm-hmm. Interesting to note that Lapis was the same. We didn't previously know that. And it also backs up what we were talking about recently, which is that Blue Diamond seems infinitely more terrifying than Yellow, because she seems really unpredictable. Yellow Diamond is much more sort of down the line what you expect a villain to be doing and saying and acting like, whereas Blue Diamond, there is just something else going on, and it's
yes, but don't forget that we've only experienced Blue Diamond in a post-Pink Diamond getting shattered world, whereas Lapis and
so you're suggesting in a pre-Pink Diamond shattering world, you're suggesting Blue Diamond was like a mega villainous force to be reckoned with, a la Yellow Diamond.
I don't know. I'm just saying I don't think we can judge their reactions to Blue Diamond based on the Blue Diamond we know, because they'll know a different one.
Very, very good point. Very, very good point. Well, I would like to see that then. Let's see some more of Blue Diamond pre.
Yeah, now that I've said that, I'd love to see that in like a flashback episode or something.
Because you're right. It'd be interesting to see how far the character has fallen down that mourning sort of hole, as it were? Like how hard is she taking Pink, like in comparison? Yeah. I would be interested in seeing that. You hit on something interesting there, Chris. Me likey.
Thank you, Dan.
Likey. You should just write for the show, since you already know where it's all going.
Should write for the show's Wikipedia page.
Yeah, just close the link, mate. Stop reading the trivia along with me, yeah? Let's have a look. Is there anything else here? Oh, when Peridot says, "Oh no, our smaller than average lake," that is a reference to Barnmates when Peridot says, "H2O, my gosh, it's smaller than an average lake." Oh, no, it's a smaller than average lake. So she called it that, a smaller than average lake, in a previous episode and referred to it as that
cool.
again this one.
That's a nice bit of continuity.
Yeah. It's actually in the continuity subheading of the trivia, Chris.
Oh, cracking.
So it's all correctly labelled.
Good job, Steven Universe Wiki.
Yeah. Although it feels like they've gone a bit lazy with the trivia. This happened with Fringe as well. So when we were doing the Fringe Observers podcast, once we started getting like 50, 60 episodes in, the trivia got really lax. Like people stopped paying as much attention. No one was really that fussed. I feel like the same thing is happening here. Like the trivia is getting less and less interesting every week. So
no, it's not an episode you can say much
well,
about.
We've said that a few times recently as an excuse. And what I love, by the way, can I please just... I thumbs up it, but I didn't reply to it. Someone put in a comment, and I don't know what I love about this comment, Chris, is I honestly do not know to what percentage this is sarcasm and not. But someone said, "Oh, good, that's right. Continue to criticize the trivia," and I couldn't decide if the comment was, "Yes, the trivia is terrible. Continue to criticize it," or, "Oh, great, you guys are criticizing the trivia again."
I think it's
famous segment. Yeah, me too.
I think it's them going, "Look, people put work into the trivia. Stop being dicks."
The thing is, we are making the same complaints every week, so maybe we need to stop doing that. Maybe having a section of the podcast dedicated to mocking the trivia section of the wiki page is not a good idea.
Exactly the same complaint we made as well, like you say, to Fringe Observers. So maybe we need trivia, but we don't like it.
It's true. Yes, that's true. Or maybe I just do what I did in the early episodes of this, which is I read the trivia in more detail before the podcast and try to slip as much of it into the podcast naturally as I can.
No, I don't think you should take credit for the trivia creators' hard work.
Yeah, no, I agree, but like giving it a whole section, like we're in the triv, is just, I feel like puts pressure on it, Chris, as a segment of a podcast.
I like saying triv.
I feel like we've let this one go over out of guilt because we knew that we'd tangented too much in the middle.
No, but like you say, at least we're tangenting on Steven Universe. What's the name of the next episode, Dan? And should I get more drink?
Back to the kindergarten and no. Have drink ready. We should start drinking again in the middle of the next one, I think.
Okay. Well, I'm on 3 at the moment.
How much have you got? Are you going to have any alcohol left for the actual drunk podcast?
I purchased podcast alcohol today, and then like some general cider for the house with the like house shop the other day. Right. And I've started drinking the house alcohol.
So we haven't even cracked into the podcast alcohol yet.
So but the podcast alcohol would involve switching to Bulmers.
I've got a significant amount of vodka, and
I've got vodka too,
and 12 bottles of beer.
Well, you need to crack on with the Join
next
us for
episode.
Next week. I'm gonna keep drinking.
Oh, dear
Dan's gonna start drinking. We'll see you for Back to Kindergarten.